YouTube, welcome to another video on Airwaysim from your aviation enthusiast. Today is part 3, and for those who have been following, you will have seen the other two videos, which was part 1, which was how to start up a new game world. Part 2 was how to play early game, and now part 3 is more about giving you a progress update and the next steps on this new game world that was started a few weeks ago. So the game world in question is Speedy Recovery. We are 2020. And I will just give you an update where we are now, just to give you an overview. So the game world is 2 years old. As you can see, it started in 2015. First impression straight away is like, look, company profit is very healthy. My airline is in a good state. So what I'll be taking you through in part of this progress update is to give you, first of all, I'm going to check my airline status, kind of show you what I've done, show you what to check, making sure how you can progress further and the next steps to take your airline to that next level. Then I will also be looking at some competitor analysis. How are you performing against your competition? What do you need to look out for? Do you think you're going to win the game, and what can you do to beat them, essentially? So that's kind of like what's going to be covered in this video. So the first thing I will do is check my current status. Now, as you can see, I am very profitable, which is good. But there's also some world events that we need to be aware of. More importantly, the one here. As I'm based in New York, which is in North America, this was just about 3 weeks ago in the game. There was a severe stock market crash, which has an impact on your airline. So if you can read this, essentially there's a 2-month cash crunch, which has an impact on passenger demand between 15 and 25%. So what does that mean? Well, it means lower income. It's very visible as well when we look at our airline status in the graph. If I just scroll down a minute, and you will see this has had a big impact here. So you see I was growing steadily, and then wham, the event happened, and it took a downturn on my passenger demand. Now, after 2 months, we expect that curve to go back up, and my profits will reestablish. Interestingly, you will see this has not had an impact on cargo. So cargo is still growing, and it's very profitable as well. So one of the things I want to check is my income statement. I have started getting more owned aircraft as well, which is a good long-term move. Any aircraft that you typically fly for longer than 7 years is worth owning. That's typically the payback period for leased aircraft. So you can see the depreciation is going up, but that's just a financial measure. It does not hit your cash flow. So yeah, all in all, I'm running a healthy airline. I'm still using lots of loans to further fuel the growth for my airline. Routes are starting to get saturated, but I am ahead of my competition, so which allows me to play in a position of strength. So let's take a look at the loans. I seem to be taking a loan out every 6 to 8 weeks typically, kind of to keep fueling that growth. And my loan is usually the value of one aircraft, so it's about 160, 170 million that I tend to borrow over a year period. You see, now I can borrow another 40 million. I tend to wait now till that comes up to about 140 million. 150 million, and then place another 1-year repayment loan and invest that in more aircraft. To give you an overview of my aircraft, most profitable ones for me are cargo, and with respect for many people in this game, cargo is very lucrative, especially with heavy cargo demand. It's making a lot more money than my passenger planes. So I have been focusing on growing my cargo, just purely for the return on investment is the quickest way at this stage. I've got quite a few airplanes to schedule. See, I've got 2 freighters and then a whole bunch of Airbus A320s, and those are leased, so it's very important that I start to fly them. So I will be doing that later. I will not put that in this video. But I've also done some A320 scheduling and short haul. I've also done 7-day as I've done my long haul, just to give you an overview how that works. If you're interested in seeing the short to medium haul 7-day scheduling, let's put a filter on the A320. Oh, you can see here these are the whole fleet. As you can see, it's the same concept, but just more flights that are being crammed in versus a long haul. Now, I've got a few aircrafts on order. Because I'm making generally good cash flow now. If you want to check my cash flow, first of all, my cash flow is when I don't. Sorry, look, I placed an order last week for 163 million for an incoming aircraft, but generally my cash flow statement here is around 55-60 million when I don't place any orders or don't take any loans out. So my cash is pretty good. Good steady income of 55 to 60 million a week, which is only seems to be increasing. And remember, this is when the event on as well. So if the event finishes, I will be making even more money. And I reinvest that in buying aircraft. Now, up till now, I had been buying some aircraft with a low percentage upfront payment just to keep the aircraft coming in, but that was quite a risky move. I've got a few aircrafts now that are on order. I need to place some order for more. If we look at here, all the next 3 aircraft that are coming in, they've all been fully prepaid up front, and I plan to just keep topping these orders up to keep getting more and more aircraft to keep growing with my cargo planes. Sometimes I might have to pay slightly lower, but it's typically beneficial to pay everything up front. You get a bigger discount for the aircraft, and it's more safe in terms of worrying about having the cash when the aircraft arrives. So now I don't have to worry about this anymore. These planes will just arrive, and there's no hit on my balance. So whenever I spend the money, I can just buy an own aircraft, and then when it arrives, it arrives. So if we were now look at the other thing that talked about in previous videos is fuel management. Just to give you an overview on how the fuel is progressing. Page is still loading, here we go. So you see now I'm quite a big fan of fuel hedges. I had a fuel hedge here earlier on, and as you can see, that was a good move because the market price was mostly above the price I was paying for my fuel hedge. Then it expired, so it took a bit of a hit, but you know, I didn't re-hedge for a while because the market trend wasn't showing an increase. Now around this period here, I said, hey, what's happening here to the market? I need another hedge because I think the fuel is going to increase again. And lo and behold, it's already starting to be above my current price. I've got $75 per ton better off at the moment, which is beneficial. In addition to fuel hedges, it's worth looking at supply contracts. For those who looked at the other videos, they will have seen that I typically hold out for a long-term contract with a high discount. Now, this game world was very strange because typically I get that within the first year. It took me over a year in the game world before I could actually get a good contract, but I got a really good deal. It was over a 4-year deal for 9%, which is the higher percentage I've seen in this game. So I quickly snapped that up, and I'm now getting this 9% discount at 3.7 million monthly fee that I have to pay. But this is, my fuel consumption is going to increase as I get more and more aircraft, especially the long haul aircraft. They need a lot more fuel, and I've got another good 4 years of this almost to take the most out of it at relatively low cost. Now, if we look at the status, my airline is just still running in one base, and you will see a lot of other players, especially new players, they're very keen on expanding bases. Now, I like to control my base as much as possible before I even think about expansion, because in Airwaysim 1 + 1 often is equal to 0. Many people will just go bust, and because they just increase their cost base, they're not recovering all the cost, and added cost diminish the profits. And you need to know when to expand. You need to have a certain amount of planes that you will need to fly from a certain operation before you expand, and you need to recover all those kind of costs. Now, if you're running out of slots in your base and you've got a ton of aircraft sitting on the ground, then it's clearly the moment to look for another base and get a second airport where you can then put those aircraft in and just start to make some money as well. Now, if you're going to have a look at my competitor analysis right now, um, one competitor already went bust. So a few months ago, and if we go back to my graphs, apologies for skipping this, but if I go back to my airline, one major airline actually went bust a few months ago, and it's very visible on my passenger graph. So here we go, we're steadily growing along as I add more planes, and then whoosh, a big jump here in my passenger graph. And that was because one of my competitors who was flying long haul got into financial trouble and went bust. Ultimately, those passengers needed to find other places to go, so other airlines to go with, and they came to me, and I got a nice boost, increased my profits, which I'm reinvesting as much as I can. So now let's have a look at the competitor analysis and see how we should really read into airlines and how they're performing versus the competitors. So I'm just going to go one by one to kind of see what I think is good for these airlines, what I think are the mistakes, are they playing well, or playing conservatively. Now this one, let's first see it, one of my competitors here. Now, first of all, I think he's only got one base as well, so he is not rushing. He's also flying cargo, and he's making good profit. So this is a guy I expect him here to stay. This guy is going to be, if he doesn't make any mistakes, he's not going to go anywhere. He's not taking out any major loans. Either A, he's not got many owned aircraft, or he's just not using the full functionality of growing as fast as he could. So if I were to have a look at his statistics page, we can have a quick overview and see what's going on. He's got a low company image, which is interesting. So he's not investing a lot in marketing. The airline value now is at 1.446. So if you compare this airline value with the shareholder equity number on the quarter update, you can then see if this airline is actually making profit in the current quarter. So you don't always have to wait till the next quarter update to see how they are performing, because those numbers are comparable. And yeah, he's running 16.2 hours, which is pretty good. So he is, I expect this guy is going to hang around. I don't expect him to make any major mistakes. So let's have a look at the fleets he's flying. He's staying below the 4 fleet types. He's got 3 fleet types here. Yeah, and he's focusing on adding freight. So he's got some 767 freighters and 737 freighters. Interestingly, he is selling some aircraft, so maybe it's a bit of a cash crunch that he's facing. I'm not sure. But yeah, he's got the aircraft on order. I'm not sure about the A318 being a good choice or the A319. They are quite small aircraft. I'm pushing with A320s on the routes against him. I'm personally not a fan of these smaller versions. 320, 321s for me are way better. And he's got to watch out the age of some of these aircrafts, depending on the long of the leases. But he's got a few owned. He's not in immediate trouble. That's kind of the bottom line. So he's not the one I need to immediately focus on if I want to push an airline out. So he's going to here to stay. So I've got to take note of him in the long term. Now let's go back and see which other ones there were there. Flowcare. So let's open them in a new tab. Easier. So this airline is very interesting in my opinion, because just purely by the number of bases he's operating is absurd at this stage. This is not a usual game. In usual games it takes you 12 months before you can open another base and between bases, but because this is a different game scenario, you seem to be able to open a lot of bases in a short period of time, and every time he's gone for a level 4, so very large base, which brings a lot of staff cost every time you do that. And the more airplanes you're going to be operating from there, the costs are just going to increase. So my view is that he's not making the return on investment in every single base, because a lot of the costs for each base are attributed back to your HQ. So he probably thinks he makes money in these bases, but in reality he's not. The reason why he's still profitable is because he's been focusing on cargo. His cargo is growing through the roof. As you can see, his numbers are very high. So he's also using loans. So he's a guy I definitely keep my eye on, and I'm going to push as much as possible, at least in my base. I will look at some of these other bases. Some of them are managed by my alliance players, so we work together to see if they can push as well. So if we have a look at his aircraft fleet, the interesting scenario is that he's got 4 fleet types, and most of them are leased. I suspect that over time this guy is going to run into trouble, because purely 4 fleet types at over 200 fleet is going to start having a big impact on his commonality cost, and it's going to ultimately drive his profits down. Now, the only reason why he's still making good profits is because all the cargo demand isn't saturated, so people haven't fully flown that, so he's making a good money. But once fuel starts to increase more, once all the parameters are starting to go against him, I think he will start to post big losses quite quickly. So my aim is really push this guy as much as possible, just for the interest of my base. He's got a good airline score. He is vulnerable in my opinion, purely because he's flying 4 fleet types. Now, if you were to downsize that to 3 fleet types, I could see him hanging around. But for me, I want to focus as much as possible as putting pressure on him, because you see he's the number 1 here in terms of the freight focuses. That's why he's doing rather well. And if I have to start thinking about base expansion in the future, some of the bases that he's at are some of the bases that I might consider, or ask my alliance partners to consider, and purely focus on putting some pressure on. So I think he's vulnerable. It all depends how much cash he builds up. Now, next one is American Atlantic Airways. Again, 1 base. Let's see. Everybody you can see has that recurring dip in passengers. He's not flying heavy cargo, so he's not focusing on the cargo. Now, he was making some losses, and he actually went in the red quite substantially. So he has done something to turn around his airline. I want to have a look at his fleet. Okay, so he's just flying A330s. He's hardly grown. So he's probably got some routes that are making him some money, and I think he's probably grown because the competitor that went bust must have improved his load factors. And he's got 1 owned A350 on order. Whether that's for him or to sell on, I don't know. But maybe he's looking to make some money on buying some aircraft and selling them at a profit. That's possible. His load factors aren't great. I think with a bit of pressure on the right routes, this guy is going to struggle, simply because he is not very large. He's got 40 aircrafts. Let me have a look at his scheduling. Does he use 7-day scheduling? I suspect he doesn't. The way I know he doesn't use 7-day scheduling is because, as you can see, these haven't got 7 days. He's missing out a day. Just purely, that's quite a new player mistake to do, especially on long haul. He leaves the 1 day in there to create a maintenance schedule. Yeah, it seems to be that way. And this should be reflected in his utilization. Yeah, 15.6 hours. For an airline that flies long haul, I would expect closer to 17 hours. So yeah, this is a guy, I feel that he is not going to hang around for much longer in New York, which would be great for me, right? And then ultimately, I think there was one more airline to have a look at, which is Merryday. Let's have a focus on him or her. So he's part of the Skylines soon. He's got 3 bases already. A very interesting choice that he chose New York and Newark, because they are in the same catchment area for when it comes to cargo. And this player is flying cargo, which I presume Hong Kong has got plenty of cargo. He's making a decent amount of money. Let me have a look at his fleet types. What airplanes is he flying? Oh, my first view is he's got too many fleet types. That's 5 fleet types. He does own some, and he's flying 737 old versions as freighters. He's gone for 747 freighters. Those gotta be out of Hong Kong, I would imagine. But again, he hasn't got many. 47 aircrafts over 3 bases. That's not going to cut it, I'm afraid, in the long run. If he starts to get competition on all the routes that he's flying with cargo, and he starts to see those load factors drop, I imagine he will quickly start to suffer in terms of profitability and ultimately go bust as well. So to summarize the airlines that I'm really going to keep an eye on, Protea for me is here to stay. This guy is not going to go anywhere. Flowcare, it all depends how much cash he builds up and whether he restructures to 3 fleet types. But with the right pressure, he could be in trouble as well. The other two here, I'm almost writing them off. Once we get going here, when I start to get to about 300 aircraft, the pressure is going to be on my competition when I grow a lot more, and we'll see how it goes from there. So yeah, if you got any questions or anything you want me to talk about on Airwaysim, by all means leave a comment below. I'm open to answering any questions on Airwaysim. As I mentioned before in other videos, I've played this game for over 10 years now. I've played with an alliance for a long time. I know many players, and the game changes, which is why it keeps me motivated and interested to keep playing. And it's an ever-evolving beast, so to speak, and every game world is different. Now with the introduction of cargo a few years back, now that's made the game a lot more interesting. Now we're going to different models with city-based demands, so it's all about your catchment areas, and you can see some of these areas here. I'm not going to go into detail now what it means, but maybe one thing I'll do beforehand is now just to buy another aircraft. Let's just check the used market, because in earlier videos you will see in the used market had plenty of aircraft and people were ready to order, whereas I think now the aircraft on the used market for my fleet types is very bare. There's not many aircraft, so there's quite a few that launched today, but as you can see, these are across my fleet types. There's hardly any 320s or 340s. They're getting rather expensive for used aircraft, so I'd rather keep my money, go for a new aircraft. As I mentioned, I make more profit on cargo than I do on passengers, so I'm going to order another Airbus A330-200. It says very expensive, but when you're making 3 million profit, 3.5 million profit a week, multiply that by 50, your aircraft is paid back in just over a year and a half, and you got your aircraft paid back. So if only it was like that in real life, I would imagine, especially in the current environment when most aircrafts are grounded. There we go. And now I'm playing it conservatively. I'm going 100% prepayment. It means I don't have to pay up on arrival of aircraft. I could order a bunch more. As you can see, that's going to use up all my cash, but I've got no other aircraft to pay for coming in. It's already the afternoon, so I paid my bills for that day, so I'm not going to go into negative cash, and it's going to grow, and I can borrow some money if I need to. I get a 6% discount for paying 100% up front, so the more you pay up front, the higher discount it is as well, and that's another reason why I'm doing it. Now if you eventually get a lot of cash, you start to pay more than 40 aircrafts up front, and you pay everything up front, you get substantial discount. I think it totals up to 26%. If it's a new fleet type, you get an additional 10%, so you can get up to 36% discount. So it's a very substantial, but you need to get that cash richness going first, and that's why I'm just focusing on one by one, placing the order, topping it up. This aircraft is now going to arrive. When is it going to arrive? Let's have a look. 30th of December. So I think if we can have a look at it's a bit of a gap. I kind of probably missed one there, but now for me is I don't have to pay for any incoming aircraft anymore, so I should generate that cash quite substantially quite quickly now, especially when the event will be over in another month or so. I should be able to order an aircraft every 2 weeks almost, and place bigger orders and kind of get a snowball effect going, and just keep reinvesting. To give you an overview where we are in terms of the slot situation. In New York, airport slots. Some slots are starting to become scarce, which has an impact on passengers, but that's another reason why I'm looking to fly cargo planes, because you'll see from 0 to 5 a.m. those are when most slots are available, because people don't want to fly there and you don't want to schedule any passenger flights in those times. But cargo doesn't care, so you got a bunch of slots, and you never, well, there's loads of slots around all times, but you see some of the key peak times when people want to schedule, they're starting to become more and more difficult to find. But that's another reason why I'm kind of focusing on cargo. And when some of my competitors will ultimately go bust, some of these slots will appear and allow me to grow further. So I'm not in a slot leading position, but look, 7 slots, and once I schedule my aircraft that are currently on the ground, I should be the slot leader in no time. But anyway, if you got any questions or you want me to cover a particular topic on Airwaysim, just send me a message or leave a comment below. I hope you enjoy this, and keep an eye out for the next video. Thanks for watching.